So when you think of Switzerland, I bet this is what pops into your head, right? The Matterhorn. It looks so pristine, so stable, so solid. But behind that postcard image is this incredible story of deliberate, brilliant engineering, not of mountains, but of a nation itself.
All right, let's get right into it, because this is the real puzzle of Switzerland. It's a country that when you look at it on paper, it just shouldn't work. I mean, it has pretty much every ingredient for division and failure, and yet it's a global model for unity and prosperity. So what's the secret? How on earth did they pull that off?
Well, the answer really starts with their foundational idea. See, the Swiss didn't just stumble into being a country. Nope, they consciously built one. They engineered it, all based on one really powerful concept. First, you've got to get your head around the sheer scale of the challenge they were facing. The Alps cover 60% of the country. They're not just mountains, they're a massive wall. They create this barrier effect, which leads to these crazy divides. You could be in Zurich and it's all gray and drizzly, but you pop over the mountains to Lugano and boom, it's sunny, feels like the Mediterranean. And that geography doesn't just split the weather, it splits the people, the cultures.
And their solution to this? It's actually kind of brilliant in its simplicity. They call it a Willensnation. That literally means a nation by will. So think about that. This isn't a country built on everyone having the same ethnic background or speaking the same language. No way. It's a political project, a conscious agreement between totally different groups of people to say, hey, you know what? We're better off together. It's unity by design, not by accident.
And man, you can see just how essential that choice was. You're looking at 4 completely different language regions packed into one small country. You've got the huge German-speaking majority, the French-speaking West, the Italian-speaking South, and even this tiny, ancient Romansh-speaking community. Each one has its own vibe, its own culture. So the huge question becomes, how do you build a political operating system that can handle all that different software at once without the whole thing just crashing?
And that's where their political system comes in. I mean, this thing is arguably the most meticulously engineered system on the planet. And it wasn't designed for speed, it was designed for stability and to force compromise.
Yeah, this image right here, it just nails it. The best way to think about Swiss politics is like one of their famous watches, a super complex clockwork mechanism. Every single piece, every gear, is there for one reason, to make sure no one group can just take over. And you know what the most important gear in that whole machine is? The citizens themselves.
They do that through something called direct democracy. Now, in most countries, right, you vote for a politician, and then they go off and make the laws. In Switzerland, things are different. The people are the ultimate check and balance. They can literally veto laws that Parliament passes. And even more amazing, they can propose their own. So let's walk through how this actually works with one of their coolest tools, the Popular Initiative. The idea is pretty simple, but the impact is huge. Step 1, you get 100,000 people to sign a petition. That's it. That forces a national vote on your idea. But, and here's the clever part, to actually win, you need what's called a double majority. You need more than half the people nationwide to vote yes, and you need a majority of the 26 cantons or states to also say yes. That little rule is genius. It means the big cities can't just steamroll to smaller rural areas all the time.
And this idea of local power, they call it radical federalism. It's everywhere. The country is made up of these 26 cantons, and you should think of them as powerful little mini-states. They run their own schools, set their own taxes, have their own police, and to balance all that, the central government is, well, it's deliberately kind of weak. Get this, there's no single, all-powerful president. Instead, a 7-person council made up of people from all the big parties governs by consensus. Yeah, it's slow. But that's the point. It forces everyone to come to the table and work together.
Okay, so you've engineered this super stable political system. Great. But how do you build a world-class economy when you have, well, basically nothing? No oil, no coal, not even a coastline. The answer? You engineer your economy too. And the core principle is simple. Focus on value, not volume.
This slide says it all. This is the entire story of the Swiss economy in 2 pictures. Their absolute genius is taking something basic, low value, like literally rocks and metal, and using brains, precision, and incredible skill to turn it into something insanely valuable and complex, like a luxury watch.
And that basic strategy is what fuels their biggest industries. I'm talking pharmaceuticals. They're a global superpower with companies like Roche and Novartis. Finance and high-tech? Yep, everything from old-school banks to the super innovative Crypto Valley. And of course, precision manufacturing. They are simply the best in the world. You can really see that historical line, right?
That obsession with tiny, perfect details that started with watchmaking hundreds of years ago? Well, that's the same skill set you need for today's high-tech medical devices.
So, what's the secret fuel that keeps this whole economic machine humming? It's their education system. It's totally different from what most of us are used to. At age 15, 2/3 of young people, 2/3, don't go to a regular high school. Instead, they start a paid apprenticeship. So they're working at a real company, learning a real trade, and going to school part-time. And what that does is create this incredible pipeline of highly skilled workers who are perfectly matched to what these advanced industries need.
All right, last piece of the puzzle. Switzerland's famous firewall against a chaotic world. It's neutrality. For centuries, this idea has been their shield, keeping them safe. But right now, that firewall is being tested like never before.
Now, it's super important to get this right. Swiss neutrality is not about being a pacifist. It's armed neutrality. The strategy is basically, we will stay out of your fights, but we have a massive, well-trained citizen army, and if you even think about invading us, we will make it so painful and so expensive that it's just not worth it. It's pure pragmatism.
But recent events have thrown a huge wrench in the works. In 2022, after the invasion of Ukraine, Switzerland did something unheard of. It broke with tradition and joined the EU's sanctions on Russia. But then, it turned around and used its neutrality law to block other European countries from sending Swiss-made weapons to Ukraine. This created a massive contradiction, and it has kicked off this huge, soul-searching debate inside the country. Does our old-school neutrality even make sense anymore?
And that whole issue feeds directly into their biggest headache, the European Union. This web is the perfect visual for their problem. Economically, they are completely tangled up with the EU. But politically, the Swiss people have voted again and again to stay out, to protect their independence and their direct democracy. It's the ultimate catch-22. They're too integrated to separate, but way too sovereign to join.
So what you have is this nation built on these deep, slow, careful traditions. Compromise, local power, staying out of trouble, suddenly facing a world that's all about intense pressure, high-speed change, and picking sides. It's a model perfected for the past, staring down the barrel of a very different future.
And really, that's the bottom line here. The Swiss model has been unbelievably successful. It's a masterclass in social and political engineering. But the very pillars that made it so strong, its neutrality, its tricky dance with Europe, its slow, consensus-driven politics, those are the very things under incredible strain today. Which leaves us with one last big question. This entire intricate Swiss machine was engineered for a world that moved slowly. It was built for careful, deliberate compromise. But can a machine like that continue to function in a 21st century that increasingly demands speed, agility, and, more often, taking firm, uncompromising sides?